everybody. Welcome to Making It, a weekly podcast about how to build a great business, produced by Enterprise, your 6 a.m. briefing on finance, business, and economics in Egypt. This season is brought to you by CIB, the partner of choice for CEOs and leaders of businesses at all stages of their growth stories, and by the United States Agency for International Development, which has a 40-year history of inspiring Egyptian success in partnership with the government and the people of Egypt.
Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, Machiavelli, and Galileo Galilei. Names we all easily recognize and know, whether it's the mastery of the paintbrush and chisel, changing our understanding of the universe, or setting up a firm foundation for political philosophy. These men have changed the world in undeniable ways. They have other things in common. They're all Italian. They were all foundational figures of the Renaissance, and by default the grandfathers of the Enlightenment. They were also all funded by one family, the Medicis. Now, the names Lorenzo, Giuliano, and Cosimo de' Medici may not be as recognizable as the others, but their contributions helped make those men the names we remember 600 years later. They didn't just fund them, they protected them against a society that was not ready for their ideas. They were their patrons and their muses, whose ideas permeated through the works of their clients. They were, in short, mentors. And they were innovators in their own right. They were one of the early pioneers of finance, from building one of the first banking empires in history to being among the earliest businesses to use the general ledger system for accounting. Their biggest achievement in our eyes, they demonstrated that behind every great innovation, there's someone with a purse that has to fund it. Now, our guests today are way too modest to ever compare themselves to the Medicis. But we feel that if tech entrepreneurs and Kanye West can get to call themselves Renaissance men, then Karim, Hussein, and Tarek Assaad, two of the three managing partners at Algebra Ventures, have the right to make that comparison. And if they don't, we'll just have to do it for them. But if you look at the revolution in tech, and by extension its emergence in Egypt as the new Renaissance, then the comparison doesn't seem as grandiose as it sounds. Algebra Ventures, the $50 million venture capital fund that focuses on early-stage startups, is a name that has become ubiquitous with the Egyptian tech startup scene. Their portfolio companies are quickly becoming some of the most recognizable startups in the region. You'll probably order food using El Menus. If you transport anything on a truck, Trella is eliminating a lot of that hassle for you. And if you need an inexpensive mobility solution, Haalan has gained a lot of ground outside of Cairo. Founded in 2015, the vision was to enable change through providing entrepreneurial guidance. Their portfolio is very diverse, with companies operating in fintech, e-commerce, and transportation, and others. They both believe their success is critical to the future of venture capital in Egypt and the region, carrying with them a responsibility to grow the industry and act as a proof of concept. The initial rounds of investment in startups, known as seed funding and Series A, are becoming more and more common in the region. The bigger Series B and Series C tickets, those that range from $50 million and more, are much less common. VCs like Algebra are hoping to facilitate that next step for regional startups. Before we continue, a short disclaimer. Ziad Mukhtar, the third managing partner, could not attend the interview. We suspect it's because he didn't want to cram 3 of his partners in a 2-person studio.
Your host for today is Patrick, Enterprise's editor-in-chief. This interview was recorded pre-COVID-19.
So guys, thank you very much for joining us here today. I think we'll start off by asking you each to introduce yourselves and tell our listeners just a little tiny bit about you.
My name is Tarek Assaad. I am a managing partner at Algebra Ventures. I've been in the venture industry in Egypt for the past 10 years. I've seen a lot of ups and downs throughout that time. I'm a huge geek, so I was a software developer in the San Francisco Bay Area.
All right, Karim.
I am Karim Hussein, also managing partner at Algebra Ventures, and also a geek, I guess. We are a firm of geeks. I have started several technology companies in the past, and I'm passionate about helping entrepreneurs realize their dreams, and super excited about the future of how technology can change our lives.
All right. Where did the name Algebra come from?
It's the biggest innovation that has come out of this part of the world, and it's arguably the basis of all science.
All right. What toy or game or hobby that you loved as a kid had the greatest impact on you as a business professional today? Karim, do you want to go first?
Sure. Well, I actually like to break toys mostly. So I like to break them apart, figure out how they worked. So that was like probably my favorite thing to do, and hopefully put them back together, usually in a different form.
Okay.
But yeah, probably 2 toys that had a significant impact. Probably my Spectrum ZX80, so first computer I ever had.
Did it come in a kit?
Yes, it did come in a kit and put it all together. I always like putting things together and taking things apart. And Meccano, I always like doing things with my hands. So being a computer geek, but also loving to work things out with my hands.
With your hands. How old were you when you got your ZX?
Oh, God. It was probably 6, 7.
7 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it had no sound.
No, nothing.
Black and white. And was this in Egypt or abroad?
This was in Kuwait. I grew up in Kuwait. Yeah.
Okay. Tarek, what about you?
I've thought about that for a while. And I think the one that has shaped most of my thinking today was the board game Risk. Because I played that game with the same people over and over again. So it's interesting because you start out planning certain things and then other people react in certain ways. So you start playing the game a little bit differently because you know who else is playing with you.
Okay.
And then over time you collude with some people against some others, and then they get upset, and then you collude with other people, and that sounds a lot like business today.
How long have you guys known each other?
We've known each other for 5 years, maybe 6 years.
We've known each other for something like 5-6 years. We've been working together for 3 years.
Where did the idea for the firm come from, though? I mean, how did you guys meet, the two of you?
So we started Algebra off of the success of a previous fund where we invested in Fowry and Visita and a couple of other successful companies.
Those are good names.
We had, they're great names. We're very proud to be part of that. We had some track record, and there were many investors looking to come in and sort of take a bet on Egypt. We were well positioned because we had done it for some time. And so that's how we started Algebra. We saw the opportunity. It was very clear for us. We had been there for a while. We were starting to see the traction happening. And just like this has happened everywhere in the world, there's no reason for it not to happen here.
Yeah, and I came at it from a slightly different angle. I'd come back to Egypt in 2011. I'd started a couple of businesses.
You came back in 2011.
Yeah. So I started.
Interesting choice of vintage year.
It was an interesting year. So yeah, I'd started a couple of businesses in the States, and I'd been an entrepreneur myself. And when I came back,
what type of business?
One was actually InsurTech before InsurTech really existed back in 2000.
Yeah.
It's a company that did software for commercial insurance in a SaaS model. And we eventually had the whole Dutch bourse running on our system for insurance management, and that was based in London and New York. And then
what happened to the company?
We sold it to Oracle eventually.
Okay.
So it became part of the Oracle Insurance Suite. After that, I worked at WebMD, and I managed technology and products at WebMD, and made everyone a hypochondriac, as people tell me. But that's that was part of the fun of the business.
Too much time on that side.
So yeah, when I just thought I had a couple more businesses in me, and decided I wanted to come back to Egypt. So I came back to Egypt and mostly actually worked with other small companies as a mentor and angel investor. And then decided that, needed a little bit more leverage and to build these companies up further and have greater impact. So, and that's, when I met Tarek and Ziad, and we worked on this together.
What was the thesis for you guys?
Well, from my perspective, it's that we really believe that technology will solve difficult problems in Egypt. And we believe that entrepreneurs are the best positioned people to make that happen. We're seeing that we've started seeing it, over the past 10 years, we started seeing it happen and accumulate over time. And today it's really sort of turning a corner or coming to fruition in a lot of different types of opportunities. There are, we all see the problems that we suffer from here, and especially as you go into the more remote areas of Egypt. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of stuff that has not been done, and services that are not being offered, and things that cost way too much relative to other parts of the world or even to other parts of Egypt. And the way to dismantle that is really through technology.
What 3 problems, can you name 3 problems that entrepreneurs are working on right now?
I'm biased, so I'll name 3 from our own portfolio.
Sure.
So distribution of goods from SME manufacturers, access to basic financial services, and mobility, the ability to move either people or goods from one point to another point in an inexpensive way.
What does a venture capital firm do? Let's break it down in simple steps that our listeners today who are not from the finance industry, not from banking, not from tech, can easily grasp. You come in, you look for a business at a fairly early stage of development. Take it from there.
We're looking for early stage companies that are typically very strong teams that we believe in and that are addressing a very large market or an interesting market that we think is ripe for change. So that's the first step, is really identifying the businesses that are interesting. Once we do, we try to understand, how big could this business look like? And then from there, decide, how much money might be required to get them to the next stage. So what's to get them to a point where they're now really prepped for very high growth. After that, most of our activity with the companies is really around supporting them on a whole broad range of things. One, in terms of just rounding out their teams. So typically any company is missing certain functions, identifying the right talent for them. We have our own in-house teams that just identify talent across the country. Is always a challenge to find good talent. So that's the beginning, great talent. And then we support along the way with the right level of strategy and operations support throughout. So we're there as a supporting function to the business. We're not directing any of the businesses that we invest in, primarily because if we could, we should be doing that business. So it's actually the entrepreneur's business. They know it better than we would.
But you're fairly hands-on. You're not a public market investor who comes in, buys a bunch of shares on a stock exchange, and hopes for share price appreciation.
Yeah, we're definitely hands-on, and we're just another member in the team. So that's probably the best way to look at it. Another member with the team with presumably a little bit more experience. We've seen the same businesses in different markets or in different sectors. As I said, all three of us have been entrepreneurs as well. We've seen companies start from 0 to 50 employees, 50 to 100, 100 to 1,000. So each of those stages has dramatic different challenges. And we try to prep them ahead of time, but you really can't prep the teams for that. It's just they experience it for themselves, and you can kind of help adjust along the way. So that's, I think, the heart of what we do, is really be the backing support for many of our businesses. The next stage is as they grow and need more financing, given our networks across the region and across the globe, we help identify new investors that could come in and support the company going forward. We'll continue to support the businesses, but there are certain size of tickets or investments that are beyond us. So we would bring in other partners from the region or across the globe to support the business going forward.
And how do you make your money?
So a typical venture fund operates in a not too dissimilar way to private equity. It's a combination of management fees and carried interest. And what that means basically is the management fee is a fee that we get on a periodic basis, and that's enough to sort of keep the lights on and just cover basic costs. But where we really make our money is where our investors make money. So there's typically, the industry is at 80-20 split. So the investors get 80% of the returns beyond the initial capital, and we get another 20.
Are you guys principal investors in your own funds or your own transactions?
Yes.
So you make capital gains there as well?
We do. For us, it's not a game of growing the fund and getting more money from management fees and sort of growing the asset base. It's really about generating exceptional returns for our investors and therefore for ourselves. What we want to see is venture capital becoming an asset class in this part of the world. It's a new thing. It's still not proven. It's happened in almost every other region in the world. It's still in the making in the Middle East and Africa.
What has to happen for it to become a proven asset class?
So the acid test for it is that investors see economically attractive returns. And I would say that today, the investors that are interested in this space are either, and certainly our LP base, is a mix of investors who are in it just for the economic return and investors who want to see that and impact as well. So you've got double bottom line types of organizations and pure, a DFI, for example, and the family office.
A DFI is a development finance institution.
So IFC, EBRD, these types of organizations, or a family office that just wants to see returns. They all want to see pipeline. They all want to look at this market, understand the new trends. It's happening at breakneck speed. Our successful companies are growing somewhere at between 20, 30, 50% per month.
Per month
for years. it scales up pretty quickly. And I think everyone and all of our investors and ourselves, we had never seen that before. At least I've been in this market for a long time, and I hadn't seen these phenomenal rates of growth. And with that comes more need for more capital, the ability to pull in stronger talent. So, I remember, for example, a few years ago when fairly senior executive left a pharma multinational company to start tech startup, people said you're completely crazy. When they started to attract others, the family members and friends and so on would say, you are leaving a successful multinational company to go work for a small little Egyptian company that has 10 people in it. You're crazy. You're crazy. You're on drugs. Something is wrong with you. The father-in-law would call and say, what are you doing to my daughter and your kids and things like that. But now it's becoming a trend. These types of profiles are talking to each other about, I see an opportunity in this startup, I see another opportunity in that startup. Fintech is really interesting. Mobility is where the place to be. The mindset has shifted completely, and that's very interesting for us.
How far are we away from that wave of exits that is proof of concept for VC in our part of the world? I'm presuming that your LPs and other people like them, the IFCs and the EBRDs, the DEGs of the world, are seeing that in at least one half of that double bottom line.
Well, I think there's one challenge is obviously, as we are getting much of our LP base, our investor bases from DFIs, that's only going to last for 1 or 2 cycles. So there's a huge burden on our shoulders to make sure we succeed. So, and we succeed in proper economic terms, not just in terms of just simple impact and enabling a few startups. So the exits are critical. We're starting to see some. Obviously, in the last year or two, there's been some very high-profile exits.
There's been Fawri.
Fawri, definitely in Egypt, the first VC-backed IPO in the whole region. So that's exciting to see. That's the beginning of a path towards that. I think that form of exit, IPO is not the only way to exit. There's been other businesses in Egypt, much smaller, some smaller ones that have exited to large global tech companies like Harmonica being recently sold. And we've seen those patterns in the past, and we hope to see more of those. And some will IPO, and I think there may be a need for an evolution of the IPO or the stock market in Egypt to support companies that are making losses to list. Amazon in Egypt would not be able to list until 3 years ago. So
absolutely.
It would have been 15 or 20 years before they were able to list on the public market. So
is that something that you guys are talking to Mohammed Farid about, or something that the VC community is talking to the stock
community
exchange
has
about?
Definitely been discussing that and discussing what different approaches to change the public market structure to allow for that kind of investment. But yeah, IPO is only, even in developed markets, that's a very small portion of businesses that actually go public. Most of them do exit through a trade sale. Or in our region, a lot of them have exited through private equity transactions. So that's also another trend we see around.
How is venture capital different in emerging markets versus developed markets? I remember once when we very first met, you were excitedly going off to a conference in San Francisco. I presumed you'd be rubbing elbows with Mark Andreessen and, the sort of luminaries of Silicon Valley VC world. And you told me you were much more interested that you were going to get to see some lady from Latin America and a gentleman from East Asia because you guys had more in common than you would with an Andreessen Horowitz or another, capital C firm from Silicon Valley. So what's the difference?
Absolutely. I actually spent some time in Silicon Valley before coming back to Egypt. So many of my friends there and from business school have become successful VCs in the Bay Area. It's a completely different world. We are very much a startup ourselves. We're trying to figure out how venture works in Egypt and in this part of the world. What I can tell you for sure is that it's very, very different from what's in the Valley. A few things. The ecosystem there is very well structured and mature. So if you're trying to understand certain opportunity, to assess a certain opportunity, you're going to have 5 or 6 people in your Rolodex that have done it before that you can go talk to. That's clear. It's well structured and documented, especially with the established firms. The terms are known. The ability to get talent is known. In Egypt, we're working on these things. We're trying to figure them out. We're trying to get executive at Vodafone or P&G or IBM to think of startups in a different way, to come and meet these teams and understand what kind of potential these companies provide and what the employment opportunity they provide to them. We're trying to still solve these problems. Things happen here in a very different way than they do in other parts of the world. And I think most importantly, the problems that we are solving here are structurally similar to other developing parts of the world like Latin America or Southeast Asia. And that's why I was excited to meet these guys, because I can learn from them a lot more than I can learn from a very successful venture capitalist in Silicon Valley. The structural problems in the environment in which they operate are very similar. The mindset is similar. The stage of development is also similar. It's just much more relevant. Or even when we talk to other investors from sub-Saharan Africa, for example, in fintech, there are a lot of parallels here. When we invested in Fawri, I remember I went and talked to one of my Silicon Valley VC friends and I explained what we were doing, and he said, why don't they just use credit cards? It's a different world.
It's a different world.
Yeah. But I think it's also because the environment has so many different startups and so many entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley that the entrepreneurs themselves learn by osmosis through their colleagues and friends around them. In our context, because there's so few and sparse and far between and few successes, that our role becomes much more important in sort of guiding and supporting those businesses versus in Silicon Valley, it may be primarily more about investment, maybe building some business development and partnerships, but more about the capital, less about the talent and the strategy and direction, which is a little bit where we have to support a little bit more as the ecosystem evolves.
But having said all of that, there are things that I personally at least look to and would love to see here. And for me, the biggest thing is I moved to the Bay Area when I was 22 years old. I was a young software engineer.
No way.
I worked for a small startup. This is .com 1.0. And the thing that I felt is the most impactful factor for me was when I was 22 years old, I would walk around the Bay Area and I would see there are all these successful companies. So for example, in the office that I was in, the guys right next door were Hotmail.
No way.
When they got bought out by Microsoft,
yeah.
I thought, these guys aren't doing anything. They're not amazing superheroes. They're just normal people. I've met them. I can be like these guys. The role models are right next to you and they're very relevant and very approachable. So it's very easy for a young 22-year-old engineer to feel like they can be part of that success. They can do what these guys are doing. And there's this incredible virtuous cycle that gets these people to be energized, to go out and start companies and inspire other people and so on. And that is what I would love to see here. It's starting to happen and it's very gratifying to see it start to happen. But I think we still have some time to go.
Maintained is brought to you in association with USAID. For 40 years, the American people, through USAID, have invested over $30 billion to inspire Egyptian success in partnership with the government and the people of Egypt.
What makes for a great portfolio company? What are the hallmarks of a great business?
A huge market that they address.
How big? How big does it have to be to qualify as a huge market?
Probably $1 billion or above. A relatively smooth path to scaling so that the cost of the incremental customer is very low. And that's why we like technology-enabled businesses, because they scale efficiently. You don't need to add employees, a significant amount of employees for every new 1,000 customers you add to the business. And the third, I think, critical element is that there's something inherent in the business model or in the product that protects it from competition in some fashion. And then, as I said, the team is the heart of it. The people in the business are what makes it happen. They can see, because you can't stave off competition forever. You always have to be evolving, building new businesses and growing in your marketplace.
So both of you guys have emphasized team. What are the hallmarks of a great team?
So we think of a few things. There's a certain skill set that needs to be there, both from a functional perspective and from a domain expertise perspective. There is the passion. And there is the chemistry between the team members. So we've seen, very young teams with little experience that are very passionate go out and really execute and grow and beat much more experienced teams just because they work really well together. But at some point, many of the companies we've invested in and others that we've seen also end up bringing on board, sort of more gray hair. Industry experience or functional experience. So, if you started a phenomenal tech startup and it's growing at 30-40% per month, In many cases, you're going to want to bring in an experienced, head of operations, let's say, to help with certain issues. And I think having these different skill sets and having that diversity inside startups is one of the things that make them unique, because you don't see that as much in traditional business.
How big is a company when it first comes into contact with you guys, top line and people?
It can be anything from 5 people and no revenue to, I think the largest investment we've made was at $40 million of revenue. That was Holiday Me in Dubai. Whenever we see the opportunity for growth is what really counts for us. We're not formulaic about size or scale or pretty much anything else except, staying within technology and seeing the potential growth.
So why don't you guys walk us through your investment process? How do you find the transactions? How do you qualify them? And then how do you decide that this is a no or a no-go for us?
A go or no go. Not a no or no go.
I say no or no go. I say go or no go.
So yeah, hopefully this is a go. There's plenty of goes. So we go with where we source different companies. I mean, we have such a broad array of places where we find great companies, either through our network of friends and other partners in technology ecosystem, through many of the incubators that have, that are doing great work on the ground in Egypt. As people start to know more about Algebra or know more about VCs in general, we'll see many of those come knocking on our door. So that's sort of the initial phase of just identifying. We work as well with some universities and some associations that attract technology talent and discuss that with. And the last one, probably one of the strongest areas, is alumni of other startups. So just like in the US, people talk about the PayPal mafia. So Elon Musk is part of that. Others.
So what's the mafia in Egypt?
Well, there's several of them. I don't want to name specific names, but as we see more and more successes, Fawry, for example, with their success, I'm sure there'll be a significant Fawry mafia. It's already there. But there's many from older generations. Link Developments, for example, Link.net, that's a significant mafia. IT Works, there's a large set of them, and I'm sure I've missed a large number of those, even in the core technology phase. So, when talking about Mentor Graphics business in Egypt, also spread a lot of great talent in silicon design. We see that as another major source of great talent and great teams. As they've been parts of successes, they've seen how to operate. Karim is another one in the region that we've seen great talent come out of. And they have the right mindset to know how to scale a business from 0 to 60 very quickly.
So who's on your investment committee? The 3 partners. And you have to decide unanimously?
Yes.
Yes. And what happens if you are not unanimous on something?
We fight a little bit.
Someone leaves upset, but generally,
it works out in the end.
It does. And we have 16 companies in the portfolio right now. I would say this is our biggest achievement in the past 3 years, is the phenomenal companies that we are lucky to be associated with. They are, building great businesses, developing very strong technology, gaining market share, growing in revenues at a pace that has really exceeded our expectations. We thought it would take us 5 years to build our portfolio. We'll probably build it in 3.5.
3.5. What are the red flags? What screams, this is not an investment opportunity for Algebra?
A founder who's working on 3 companies in parallel.
You see that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
A team that's just come together is not really aligned. It's usually around teams and people that's the challenge. And the other big red flag is someone addressing a very small market or a niche space, and believing they can just burn cash to capture that. That's typically another thing. The word burn cash in itself is just offensive. Offensive to any human being, right? Yes. So I think that's just become such a normal term to use in the
Do not come to Algebra talking about burn rate.
Yeah.
And I think we are trying to be disciplined in pursuing sort of quote unquote hot opportunities. There are companies that can generate a lot of hype, that are growing. Many of them are spending a lot of money on marketing and not quite as much on capacity or technology development or sort of building the bones of the company. We tend not to be very attracted to that type of opportunity. We prefer businesses that'll last, that'll be great in their own right, not driven by investor interest, but rather driven by market interest.
What are you most passionate or interested in right now?
I think in Egypt we have a special talent in some very strong core technology businesses, and we're looking for more interesting businesses. There is in Tarek's portfolio, a previous business called Cyware, which created unique silicon design technology that's now being used globally by global tech firms. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for that.
We have 16 companies today in the portfolio, out of which 0 are fintech.
0.
We've been looking, and even though we've done fintech investments before, but we hadn't really found anything that we were very excited about. Today, the last investment that we approved that we haven't signed yet is fintech, and 3 out of the 4 companies we're looking at closely are fintech. So fintech is really taking off.
You've both been part of this ecosystem, as you call it, for a really long time, but you guys have seen the progression of the industry over a period of years. How has it emerged? How has it evolved? And where do we stand today relative to potential?
I remember when I came back from the US, my friends would tell me, what the hell are you doing with your life? You know, you're a well-educated guy. Why don't you get a real job for a multinational or something? What is this stuff that you're wasting your time on? Today, the second and third generation business owners, people from my generation will call me and say, hey, we're interested in this in the angel round. Can you help us out? Or this other angel is crowding me out and I want to come in, or things like that. The mindset has changed very significantly. And even the narrative and how people are approaching this, of all different types of people, from young entrepreneurs to experienced executives to large business owners, it's starting to really shape up. And that's very gratifying for us.
Yeah, and I was a large portion of the last 20 years, I was not living in Egypt. So it's only the last 7 or 8 years that I have been here. But I used to come more on a periodic basis. So you see the transition more clearly when you're a little bit removed from the environment. And I think the biggest change in my view is a little bit about mindset, the ability for the confidence of the entrepreneurs in believing they can change something. They can change the world around them. That confidence didn't exist before, or they were working on small problems or small issues. Now the challenges they're addressing are market challenges or global challenges or, regional challenges. So I think that's a significant change in the psyche of the typical entrepreneur in the technology space in Egypt.
I still don't understand why you came back. You built a business, you sold it in a trade sale successfully. You did WebMD, huge, high profile global thing, took it public. And then you came back in 2011, man. Why? I still don't get the answer there.
Because Egypt's always been exciting. It's home. It always will be home. And, I've always felt a strong affinity to living here and working here. And to be honest with you, on a day-to-day basis, you feel the impact very strongly of your contribution to the society or to the environment around you. I think one of my most exciting things about being at WebMD was really building products that change people's lives. And that's what excited me about it, Hearing from somebody, the symptom checker saved my dad's eyesight when I was walking because I checked something on it and needed to rush him to the emergency room. So these are the things that really resonated with me. And in Egypt, I felt I had I felt more and more challenges that needed to be resolved, and I thought would have a better impact here.
All right, so let's talk about Algebra itself for a minute. What's the future of the firm? What are you guys building right now?
We see ourselves doing a lot more of the same for some time. We think that this wave of technology entrepreneurship and what technology can do to solve difficult problems will continue to grow. We're seeing ourselves doing more geographically, maybe. So our current fund does Egypt, and we have 3 investments of the 16 out from the Middle East region.
That's Dubai, and where else?
That's Dubai and Jordan.
Okay.
We have the ability to invest in other countries such as Saudi, Morocco, and Tunisia, but we haven't made any investments there yet. But I think an interesting expansion for us would be to go to sub-Saharan Africa.
Is it hard to imagine going outside of a region that you know really well?
It is to some extent challenging, but we've been, over the last probably year or two, building a lot of relationships with markets, in sub-Saharan Africa. And some of our own businesses are looking to expand there and have expanded. Halland's now operating in Sudan and Ethiopia, and several others already have beachheads in East Africa and a variety of locations there. It's a little bit of a challenge understanding the local culture, the local operators, but as our current portfolio builds up their footprint in different regions, I think we will follow them in this case rather than them following us. So we'll follow them and start building the appropriate relationships there. I think it's going to be challenging, but we see that as the natural next frontier for most of the Egyptian startups that we deal with. And we think there will be also opportunities there that could feed back into Egypt as well.
How much of your wealth is tied up in venture capital?
Our personal wealth?
Personal wealth.
Well, we'd advise anybody who's ever going to invest in venture capital to not invest more than 3 to 5% of them. In our case, we've our career and our life is in venture capital. So
right?
We're probably a lot larger than the typical investor should be in VC.
Who are the next wave of limited partners in the funds that you guys will raise in the future? Obviously, you don't know them by name, but qualitatively, who are these people?
Well, a little bit more of the same. Some of the DFIs, the development financial institutions, but we also see a huge interest, as I said, in actually, as Tarek just mentioned, in several of our most recent investments, a significant portion of the round was taken by large family offices in Egypt. So we see an increased interest there. An increased interest from some corporate VCs as well. We've talked to a few locally that seem to be interested in being LPs to get exposure and a view of what's happening in the market.
What's a corporate VC? This is like a captive VC?
A corporate VC is typically the funds set aside by a corporation, a large company, that are typically exploratory. In some cases, they may be strategic. So Cisco, for example, is an investor in us, and Cisco this is really exploratory, seeing what's happening in the market, understanding, in certain cases they may wish to invest with us on a specific deal, but it's really to gain exposure to new trends and new changes and technologies in the market.
And the other thing is we currently don't have any Egyptian investors, which is something we don't like.
Yeah.
When we raised the fund, we had to go to people who were sort of willing to take some risk and had seen venture capital work in other markets. And we're very fortunate to have gotten the backing of these large global organizations. For our next fund, we'd love to have a few Egyptian investors because we think that's important from both from our ability to partner locally, but also as this becomes more of an asset class, the local investors will be able to see, how this asset class performs and understand it better and so on. We feel like we have a bit of a responsibility given that we raised the fund and, we're getting traction to make sure that this happens both on the portfolio company side, but also on the investor side.
So when will you guys be in the market to raise Algebra 2?
Well, we've had 16 investments to date, and we continue to see great opportunities, and we have a large amount in our pipeline, and we'll continue to be investing throughout the coming few months. And that pace of investment has accelerated. The rounds are getting larger as we see much faster growth from some of these businesses that we're investing in, many of them growing at 50% month over month and requiring additional capital. And we see that, probably in the 2020, we'll add additional capital and funds into the market to further spur faster growth in the market.
And that's where we might see some Egyptian names coming in.
Yeah, we hope to see that.
How do you explain to someone that you've invested in who's coming back to you saying, look, I only need another X to get to the next stage, and you know that the next stage just isn't going to generate the return that you want, and you got to say no? How do you do that?
That's one of the most difficult parts of this job, in my opinion. We work with people who put blood, sweat, and tears into these startups. The level of passion is very high. It becomes their babies. We've seen people, sell personal property. Sell their cars to keep these businesses afloat. However, we need to have the discipline of telling them things exactly the way we see them. I believe that if you provide capital for the wrong reasons, you're actually doing them a disservice, because our responsibility, given our experience and given the portfolio that we see and so on, is to provide honest advice, even if it's tough advice. And in many cases, we'll have to go and have a tough conversation with our entrepreneurs and show that things are not working. And it's difficult for entrepreneurs, but I feel it's part of our role.
And part of the conversation is also, I think entrepreneurs and the startups we invest in, portfolios we invest in, need to understand that we also need to be successful for the next set of portfolio companies to be successful.
Your business in your own right.
We actually could destroy the whole VC industry in Egypt if we are not successful, or a few of us VCs, in at least one or two of them, are successful. Then there won't be additional funds. No one will invest in the future of technology-enabled startups in Egypt. So it's critical that both people win.
I'm going to ask you guys for your pitch, but a slightly different pitch. Everybody who comes on has to tell us why we would buy one share of you. So not why would I become an LP in one of your funds, but why would I join you guys as a member of the general partnership? What's your pitch?
My pitch would be, come work with the most exciting technology portfolio in Egypt. That's what excites me, that's what gets me up in the morning. And that's why I want to go to work in the morning, because we are very fortunate to work with phenomenal entrepreneurs that are building great businesses.
Karim?
Yeah, that's similar to Tarek. It's like, come help fuel the engines of growth for the future and come enjoy the change, the dynamic change that we see over time. So you need people we love people or love investors that are comfortable with change and comfortable with the risks associated with those changes and are constantly intellectually curious and looking for cool new ideas and thoughts.
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. If you want to comment or maybe suggest a guest, send us an email at makingit@enterprise.press. That's makingit@enterprise.press. Making It is produced by Enterprise, your morning briefing on business, finance, and economics in Egypt. Subscribe today for free at enterprise.press. Did you like today's episode? Subscribe on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, or wherever else you get your shows. Did you love today's episode? Like us or give us a 5-star rating and a review to help others discover us. This season is brought to you by CIB and by the United States Agency for International Development. And that's how we're making it.